All right, we're talking sugar, sugar, and sugar. That's right, whether it's for pre-diabetes, diabetes, or just watching your intake. What do you need to know? We're registered dietitian Kristina El-Khouri with Cone Health Nutrition and Diabetes Education Services is here today, and she's going to be dishing out those nutrition tips on meal planning and navigating the sugar do's and the don'ts. All right, so let's just start off kind of like, with the easiest stuff. Why is it so important that we control our blood sugars, and what risks are associated?
Yeah. So it's really important if we have diabetes or prediabetes to make sure our blood sugars are under control. Just because we know that if our blood sugars are high, it can put us at a higher risk of developing some chronic conditions like heart attack or stroke, or even our kidney disease. And so we want to make sure that we're controlling our blood sugar so that we can prevent those things.
All right, and I think a lot of people think, oh, I don't drink it or eat that much sugar until they probably start tracking it. So what are some simple meal planning strategies to keep our blood sugar levels stable?
Right, yeah. So easiest thing that I like to think of is kind of what we call the diabetes portion plate. And I even have an example here today. So this is fake food, but it might make you a little bit hungry. But you can see here on this plate, we've got a quarter of this plate filled with a source of lean protein. A quarter of this plate is filled with a complex carb, and in this case, it's a small baked potato. And then half of this plate is filled with some vegetables. So whenever we portion out our plates like this, it tends to help us have the best blood sugar control.
Yeah, I like the way that it's like the half of it is a green vegetable. And we're not saying that you can't have that carbohydrate or that starch. You just need to make sure that the portion is correct. All right, so let's highlight some of the common pitfalls or don'ts that people should be aware of when they're trying to manage their sugar.
Right, and this just goes back on kind of what you were just saying. We don't want to completely cut these carbohydrates out of our diet. So one of those big kind of pitfalls is when people think that they have to totally cut those carbs. We want to focus on the complex carbs, the starchy vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and then keeping it to that portion, right? Some other things are skipping meals. We want to try to avoid skipping meals for sure. Those are kind of two of those big things that I think about when we think of those pitfalls.
Okay, and we don't want to skip meals because why?
Well, it really can whack out our blood sugar, right? We need to have consistent meal times for stable blood sugars. And so if we skip a meal, it may tend to make us more hungry later on at a different meal time, and then we may overeat and cause a blood sugar spike.
Gotcha. Okay. So when someone's blood sugar level is spiked or too high, what should they eat or drink to maybe help bring it down?
That is an awesome question. Yeah. So whenever our blood sugar is too high, we want to make sure that we're drinking a lot of water. So it's really important to stay hydrated in that case. Something else that we can do that naturally brings down our blood sugar is get some exercise. So even as little as like a 15-minute walk can help bring our blood sugar down. So when we exercise, it actually helps our body use insulin better, which is that hormone that allows us to use the sugar that's in our blood. Our muscle cells even open on their own and use up some of that sugar.
Okay, so take a walk around the house or walk around the block or something like that if your blood sugar is high.
Yeah, or do an at-home chair workout, or throw on a dance video on YouTube.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So on the flip side of that, if someone has their blood sugar drop too low, what should they eat or drink then to quickly raise it?
For sure, yeah. So first thing is, if you check your blood sugar and it's less than 70, that means that you're pretty low. And so what you want to do is what we call the 15-15 rule. And so with the 15-15 rule, it just means drinking 15 grams of sugar, which would be about a half of a cup or 4 ounces of juice or regular soda, and then wait 15 minutes. Then you would want to check your blood sugar, and if it's up above 70, have a balanced snack that has a complex carb and protein. But if it's still low, then you want to repeat that process.
Gotcha. And you want to give yourself that time so that you're not overdoing it.
Correct. Yeah. Some people, it's a bad feeling low. You may feel shaky, clammy, and you want to get it up fast. But if you overdo it, you'll find that you get a spike after.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about some affordable, maybe pantry staples that we should have when we're wanting to manage our sugar.
Some of the first ones that come to my mind are going to be like dried beans, canned beans. Beans are going to be a huge, as far as like affordable pantry staple, because beans actually provide us with some complex carbs and protein. We can also look for whole grains, canned vegetables, frozen vegetables, and maybe even things like canned chicken breast or canned fish too.
Okay. All right. That way you can go and have those no matter what you're out of, nothing in the fridge looks good, but those kinds of things are stable. All right. Now, if you're the only person in your household who really needs to watch their sugar levels, how do you stay on track and avoid the temptation, especially if your other family members, have the Reese's eggs in a bag right there?
Right, right. I think communicating your needs to your family is really important, but keeping a lot of your, nutritious and filling snacks on hand, those ones that we know help balance our blood sugar. And so keeping those, at the forefront of the pantry and the fridge, having them available is going to make us more likely to choose them. Some of the other things is if we do have that craving, we see the Reese's eggs, it may be better to just have one, right? Instead of thinking, oh, we can't have that, we can't have that. And then it kind of builds up and then we want all of them.
All right, let's talk about some maybe sneaky sources of added sugars that are maybe in everyday food that we're not aware of.
Some of the common ones that you'll see are going to be things like honey, agave, maple syrup, or maybe even things like brown sugar or turbinado or raw sugar. So you might see those on the label. Those are sources of added sugars, and they tend to be marketed in kind of a different way of maybe that they may be a little bit healthier for our blood sugar.
Or natural or whatever it is. Okay,
Correct.
and so to spot those hidden sugars when we read those labels, we just need to really turn the things over on everything from like spaghetti sauce to ketchup.
Yeah, and I actually have an example here. You may not be able to see it well, but on the side of your box, you do have a nutrient facts panel. Best place you can look for it is look down for total sugars, and right under that, it'll say added sugars. And a good rule of thumb is looking for that added sugars to be in the single digits.
Okay, added sugars to be in the single digits. It can have some added sugars, but we want to limit it to the single digits. When it starts getting to 22 grams of added sugar, we got to be careful with that. Okay, what about when you're dining out? Like some ideas on how to manage the sugar then?
Yeah, and so when we dine out, we just want to continue to think about that kind of that diabetes portion plate, right? A lot of the time, whenever we're out to eat, we can still make our meal a really balancing and nutritious meal while still satisfying our craving for whatever we went out for. For example, if we're going out for pizza, maybe instead of just getting pizza, we get pizza and a salad to fill up half of our plate with. And then we satisfy our pizza craving, but we still get that fiber and those vitamins and minerals from the vegetables.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about hydration. I didn't know this before, that it's a big deal for those to stay hydrated. Why is that?
Right. So when we're dehydrated, it can actually raise our blood sugar a little bit. Everybody in general needs to make sure that we're hydrated, right? But it can be especially important for people who are managing their blood sugar. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're drinking enough water throughout the day. And, if we're having a hard time with that, maybe we flavor it with some lemon or lime, or some people will do cucumber and mint.
Okay, so I would guess that's kind of like the hydrating option that doesn't necessarily add sugar. Cucumber, mint, lemon, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or maybe herbal teas or sparkling water or things like that.
Okay, what are the drinks that we just need to steer clear of?
Well, if we're looking for, hydrating options, you might see like Gatorade or Powerade. Those ones are going to have a lot of added sugar, so we might want to try and avoid those when we're trying to just get hydrated. Of course, trying to limit the sugar-sweetened beverages like sodas, juices, sweet teas, and lemonade, because all those are going to tend to give us a blood sugar spike.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so when does it get to the point when you need to seek help from a medical professional about your blood sugar, or what are the signs or symptoms that we need to be looking out for that we need to go to the doctor?
Yeah, some signs of our blood sugar being too high are frequent urination, so we're going to go pee a lot, or feeling really, really thirsty, like we can't quench our thirst. And so if you were to check your blood sugar and maybe it's over 250, but you also feel like you might vomit or you have vomited, that's a sign to go seek medical attention or talk to your doctor. A sign that we may need to go immediately is if you check your blood sugar and your meter just reads as high, HI, or it might say HIGH. So that means it's too high to read and we should go get attention immediately.
I think it's interesting what you said about that, the symptom, like if we're feeling like we want to throw up or something like that, because I think people eat and then they go, oh, it just must have been something that was bad, or I just must have overeaten. But we have to really be kind of like thinking about how our body is doing.
Right, right. And so if we check our blood sugar and it's been 250 or maybe above that for a while, and we have that feeling of nausea or vomiting, it could be a sign of a complication called diabetic ketoacidosis that we want to avoid.
Right. Okay. And just We leave because we've got like less than a minute. I want to see that plate one more time. I love the fact that we don't have to give up the baked potato. We just need to do what?
Add veggies, right? And have some lean protein with it.
Okay, add half the plate that is green and then some lean protein. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be green. Lots of different colors are important.
That's good to know too. All right, that's it for our talk on blood sugars. If you missed any of this, maybe a family member or a friend needs to hear some of this, we're going to have this interview for you in the To Your Well-Being section.